Probably good to start, and anybody else can always be added as it's going.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye. Oh yeah, there's still people joining, but I'll just keep an eye on the waiting room and just literally add people as they join. So thank you everybody for coming to tonight's talk in conversation with the Dready vet, Fabian Rivers. This is a talk that's been organised by Sutton Bonington Guild, which is run on the same campus that Nottingham Vet School is based in. So I am a vet student, and then we've been organising some events for Black History Month. So I reached out to Fabian to try and get a talk going for the students, not just the vet students, for everyone at the university. So I hope we've got lots of varied people in the audience. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Fabian.
Thank you very much, Neve. That's awesome. It's an awesome introduction. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in and been messaging me about this. I'm very, very excited to share with you just a little bit of my story, some of the things that I've done, some of the kind of community things that I've been connected with in a very short period of time, so I really appreciate it. Just to give you an idea about the framework, one thing that we discussed was making this very personal. So I'm going to just kind of go through where it started, what I've been doing, how I got here. So if you have any questions, by all means, leave them to the end. We'll have a bit of a Q&A session, unless that's right, isn't it? We'll have just a little bit of a Q&A at the end. And so yeah. So let's get cracking. Oh, last thing, this whole presentation, I have saved you, for all those of you who are vet students in particular, saved you many words. The whole thing is going to be pretty much in pictures. So you can see the kind of the whole progression from start to finish, really. So thank you very much. And hopefully there's a little bit of value there for everyone. So let's get started. So, if it will work, let's try this. Ta-da! Okay. So, these are some pictures of me, very, very young, and just kind of the very cliche side of veterinary medicine. I'm at a very young age of 4 years old. I wanted to be around animals all the time, and so these are just some pictures or some references of some of the kind of things that I did as a youngin. So I'll go through them. The one on the left, me holding this massive monitor lizard, was in Kenya. I must have been about 7 years old. As you can see, I was over the moon about holding this one. One thing that really reminds me of that time was it was supposed to be Christmas Day, actually, and so obviously wearing a t-shirt on Christmas Day in Kenya was quite a funny one for me. But me and my brother are very different people, and so the reason why I mention my brother is because I am the animal person in the family, and he is the non-animal person in the family, shall we say. We're very polar ends of that scale. So whilst I was chasing around this monitor lizard to get another cuddle, my mom told him a bit of a mean joke and said to him that the monitor lizards spread TB. And so the reason why I find this picture hilarious because he gave me this lizard and then he ran off to the toilet and started washing himself for about 30 minutes of hand wash because he was scared he was going to get TB. So this was it's a hilarious photo that I have to share with you. But as you can see in the other photos, I'm always the one, who's quite clearly so excited to be around animals. So the second picture in the middle at the top, that's me and my brother. So as you can see, his left arm is around my shoulders, which is what most kids do. It's a family photo. But I just completely bypassed him to try and hug the other dog. So to give you a sense of the type of person I was as a young kid, it was very much how much time can I get around animals. And I was the kind of, everyone always says this about veterinary medicine, I was the kid that went out and stared at hedgehogs in the back garden, but that was definitely me. I had ant farms as a kid. I had stick insect, projects as a kid. I would collect worms and have all sorts of different type of weird and wonderful creatures. I had rats when I was young, much to the bemusement of my mainly West Indian family. And so, being so centered around, spending time with animals was very much just a drive for me from a very young age. And so as I grew older, like a lot of us here will understand in veterinary medicine and other passions that we've had, you kind of grow into it. So you learn about science, you think, well, that's interesting, but ultimately the passion for animals was there from a very, very young age. So I think I must have had around 7 dogs, 3 rats, a whole bunch of stick insects that weren't supposed to breed but ended up breeding. And so I kind of went to school for a few weeks trying to get people to adopt them from me, because I had about 50 at one point. And animals and being around them is just kind of something that has been always quite a natural affinity for me. So yeah, here's just a framework for you. So as a result, as time went on, the kind of just love for animals and understanding what that means changes. You learn, like I mentioned before, you learn about sciences. You learn about that it's not just hugging animals and giving them medicines. It's about, commitment, resilience, things that, define you, having to be in uncomfortable positions throughout your entire time as your formative years as a growing, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old. And having to think about the more important things that get you to this particular point of veterinary medicine. Because we all know, or most of us will know, that it's incredibly difficult to get there. So the reason why I've on the right side put growth challenges and barriers is because it was at this particular point in like a secondary school period. For those who are from around the world, that's usually around being 11, 12 years old all the way up to 18. Is because I had my first real experiences of the type of not only work that I needed to do to become a vet, but also the type of kind of preconditions that people would place on, getting to being a vet. And so I've got 2 very distinct balances of experiences that stuck with me a very long time. So as you can see, I'm top left, look like I'm strangling a penguin. I can promise you guys I'm not strangling it. This is a very high-tech procedure of catching African penguins. And this was in South Africa with a charity that I still do some work for now called SANCOB, which is South African. It's a South African kind of bird sanctuary, and they had this 8-week volunteering course, and I used it as part of EMS. And so I was out in South Africa for 8 weeks by myself, and working 5 days a week for free, obviously. In fact, I actually paid them a donation to work for them, and yeah, it was a great experience. The guy on the left in the background was a friend of mine from the Netherlands, who was just basically taking the longest gap year of all time. And by longest gap year, I mean he had several. So it didn't become a gap year, it became a gap decade. I wouldn't be surprised if he was doing something else, random, just to live out his dreams, bless him. But, I wanted to do something in my summer holidays, so I managed to wangle 2 extra weeks off sixth form, and went out to South Africa for 8 weeks. But the reason why this was such a positive experience for me, because it was my first real extended period of time with exotic animals, and I guess to a certain extent, solo responsibility, and also in a place that, for me, ironically, didn't feel like I was going into a place which is alien. For those who don't know, South Africa is a very diverse place with regards to ethnicity, race, and a variety of other things. And so a large amount of the people I was surrounded by were, dark-skinned Black people, mixed race, from a whole kind of, a whole plethora of different backgrounds. And for somewhere which wasn't home, very quickly it felt like home. And so, you know, it was great. I've got a few videos actually. Let's see, will this work? Yes. So here is a pelican that it was my sole charge after 2 weeks to bring back to life. It's covered in oil. I have videos, but I'm pretty sure I'm swearing, so I probably just will avoid that part. But as you can see with my shaky hands, this is me trying to compare the size. I'm not sure how that was accurate or valuable to the video at all. But just some of the great experiences I had very early on. I've got another one here. And this was my favorite penguin because it was number 197 because it had this tag on here, if you can see. And it was one of the more affable in the group. And I had maybe a pen of 50 to look after. And it was just very basic. It's like medication, fluids. And so it was a really, really positive experience for me to go and, you know, do that type of thing out there solo as I think I was 16 or 17. And I'll come back to it, sorry. So I'll come back to that. That was a very positive experience for me. And the other side, this was a kind of lambing season trip. So everything I'm in is red overalls, and I think I may have been 15. So I went and, you know, for those who don't know, a lot of the vet students have to spend time lambing, you know, being on a farm and just showing proficiency and having a real sense of what veterinary medicine can mean for a variety of reasons, because we learn a variety of different texts, a variety of different fields. And so this is some of the things that we have to do. And although this particular farm was a very positive experience for me, I had a couple of you know, farming experiences where it was my first real understanding that the job I may be going into, I may encounter things surrounded by, you know, racism and some prejudice and a variety of different views, which you know, at the time, being kind of from Birmingham, in a city Birmingham, was a little bit alien to me, to be brutally honest with you. You know, very, very casual comments, going into shops, being stared at, being followed, all things that you can have in a city, but to an extent which was a real understanding that if I was to go into certain fields, or that my future life may be surrounded by different experiences where those things I would have to, you know, accept, you know. And so I always use these two examples of being British, born and bred, you know, both my parents were born here, and going to certain places and feeling alien, and then going all the way, you know, 13, 14 hours on a flight to a place I've never been before, doing something which I'd never thought that I could be doing, and feeling very at home, you know, for an 8-week period. And so that balance between the two was very much an eye-opener at an early age. And so I've written here, time which is defined by growing up by maturity, realisation of the task ahead, which is regards to veterinary medicine, whether I had the grades, because I like to run around and play, like most of us at 15, 16-year-olds, had the appearance, had the potential. The question marks are greater than the confirmations. And so, yeah, that's a very important part of a lot of my period in secondary school, was a lot of, can you do it? Would you fit the look? One particular story was and it's an old story, I'm sure Mandisa and you know, a variety of other people have had this, but I was actually told pretty much word for word that veterinary medicine is not only hard, but you tend to get in when you have a certain look. And that actually by me applying, by you know, definition, was going to be an even greater hurdle, because the admissions process into veterinary medicine was going to be built against me. And even though the word look wasn't used, the kind of, I believe the way it was done was, you know, they have a certain, and that hand movement was one of the most demoralizing points in my process to becoming a vet, because I realized that even before I put an application, even before I put my GCSEs, or had my GCSEs in front of me and any qualifications, people were already saying, you may want to try something else. And it was the only thing at that point I'd wanted to do. It was literally, there hadn't been anything else. I was very clear. And so that's effectively what it is. And, you know, again, at the bottom it says, I am indebted to my mom. Yes, the spelling is M-O-M. And if anyone writes in the chat that it's M-U-M, I'm happy to find your location and fight you. Okay, but it is M-O-M. But no, genuinely, you know, I really have to thank my mom for supporting me, because in particular, her belief that, you know, I could get there was very much at sometimes the only thing that was the drive and motivation to get there, to be honest with you. So this is something that happened. So when I had the opportunity to apply, I applied to 4 universities. I won't use their names for obvious reasons, because it's in the past now. But my first rejection came 4 days after my application, and that the speed. You know, when we go onto those forums, those vet forums or those student forums, and we find out who's got their offers and who's the first round and how do they do and how many work experience. I went onto one of those websites after getting my, I think it was a student room. I believe it was a student room, and I had a rejection. Like it was so quick. It was so quick. And I went onto the student website and searched through so many pages, honestly, and could not find one person who'd also had a rejection that quick. And so initially I already had that. I felt very demoralized very early in this particular process, but I realized there were still 3 other opportunities. Fast forward, I had one offer, but the process from the 2 other unis, one had asked me 6 times to clarify some work experience. One had said that, had rung me and said that they were happy to have me on board, and then I'd got a rejection. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of confusion. And I felt that at the time when I had the opportunity to go to university in the UK, I was already very much at odds with so many parts of veterinary medicine, as you may be able to imagine. And so I had a gap year. I had a really big reassess about the type of things that I wanted to do, whether I even wanted to do veterinary medicine at this particular point. And that's where I was mentally. And I thought maybe I could go into research. There's so many different parts to it. But the opportunity came round. And I think I realised quite deep down that there was a certain part of veterinary medicine that was very much part of the kind of a vocational passion of who I was at that time. And so I wanted to keep my options open. And so I had a friend who I'd met maybe around Christmas time, 2011 even, a long time now. And we were talking about, I was talking about how, you know, veterinary medicine was, you know, it was taking a lot of energy for me, and all I wanted to do was be able to do the job. And mentioned just in passing that I'd noticed that you could study abroad, just you know, as you do. And she said to me that someone who'd been to the same sixth form as me was studying in the Czech Republic, and that he was doing dentistry. And I thought, oh, okay. So I contacted him, just his thoughts about Europe and about being in Europe. And he actually said there was a vet uni in the same city. And so that kind of set off a cascade of different events in which I decided that I'd not been really, in so many different ways, given a fair chance of being able to express myself. And that by that time, I'd already had to do so many things in such a non-linear fashion that going to Czech Republic and really pushing myself, as long as I could come back to the UK, eventually pushing myself and doing something very different was very much in line with who I was at that time. And so after having flown out, I actually got to an acceptance letter 4 days before the first day of semester. And I flew out with my mother, we went to IKEA, we found the flat, did it all within basically 2 days. And then that was it really. I was going to study in the Czech Republic. Now, for all of the people who are going to ask, did you have to learn Czech? Is it in English? Yes, it is in English. And it's a great uni, particularly for exotics. And also it's pretty good for equine as well. And so what I learned from applying there and doing a little bit of research is that I could come back to the UK. It's great for exotics, and I was still going to be able to be a vet. And I didn't have to feel like I was having to a certain extent at that particular point, proving myself almost to a system that I felt I was more than capable of doing. But I just didn't have a lot of faith in a lot of the things around being in the UK. And also my uncle's wife maybe lived 2 miles from the city, so that was just another round of it was completely random, but it was another layer of confirmation that this might be a really big opportunity for me. So I hope everyone can see my pointer. Can they? Good, brilliant. This is where Brno is, this is where Prague is. And so people go, oh, you studied in Prague? No, I didn't study in Prague, I studied in Brno. Brno is the second city. And so for someone from Birmingham, being from the second city, if anyone's from Manchester, you're definitely not the second city. Birmingham is. It's a small, I think it's 500,000, I say small, very loosely here. It's smaller than London, which doesn't really say much, but it's about 400,000 people. And it's one of the key takeaways from this place is it's so close to so many other things. So I always tell this same story. So if anyone's heard this, please, don't tell me off. But I could go to Vienna for lunch if I really wanted to. And I did, a couple of times. I know I could go to Prague for the day, although I didn't do that much. But it was a huge opportunity. The actual course itself was more expensive at the time than it was in the UK. But the quality of life for a student, I didn't really experience that, to be honest with you. So when people are telling me stories of 6 people in a flat and 5 people don't know how to wash their dishes, I never experienced that really. I had a really fancy flat and then an even fancier one later on, 3 years down the line, where I had 3 bedrooms, had my own office, had a living space, I had a balcony. So it was all very Soho, darling. It was beautiful, it was amazing. And so I had, but in the grand scheme of things, apart from the fact that everyone was pretty much Czech, not on my course, there's lots of Norwegians, Greeks, Israelis, but most of the university was Czech. Apart from that, I had pretty, we do all the same things in veterinary medicine. We cut up things like we am doing in the middle, which also looks like I'm about to cut my finger. I can assure you, I still have them all. And then on the bottom right, this is the baptism of fire. It's clearly what everyone thinks veterinary medicine is about from its start to finish. And the last one, top right, I have to show this picture because I look absolutely glued in. I think I laughed at this for about 5 days. Now, I can promise you no one is attacking me or stabbing me, or I'm not in the final exam. For whatever reason, this is the most important thing I've ever had to do in my entire life, and someone caught that moment. I can't even begin to tell you. I believe it was a pig, and I think this is when we were doing minimally invasive, laparoscopic something. And, it was my job to, I think, do something on it. Clearly it was very intense, but I hope you've all had a good laugh at that because, it's one of my favourite pictures from undergrad, to be honest with you. So, yes. Oh, last thing. With veterinary medicine, even in the Czech Republic, which is probably no surprise because we always do this with all the different countries, we go, well, did you experience racism in Czech Republic? Yes, most definitely. But the Czech Republic is the second most xenophobic place on the planet, apart from Saudi Arabia. But, and this is a kind of weird distinction in the Czech Republic, Czechs don't really have an understanding or real understanding of racism in the same way that we do here. This is a bit of a slight tangent. Racism here in the UK is a very fine-tuned thing that we all understand, but we kind of are able to assimilate and put into different parts of society. In the Czech Republic, everyone is an enemy. So it's, even though it does exist, it exists in a very different way. And so, oddly enough, my experiences of racism in the Czech Republic were so open and overt that it almost made me feel more comfortable because I knew when it was happening. And, you know, I didn't feel, if people didn't like me because of my race, they were very clear. And so it gave me a space to be able to just navigate away from those intervals where racism exists, or those places where racism existed, sorry. And that is not always something you have the opportunity to do in the UK, because you find out a long time after. Oh, and lastly, yes, I became the student union president because quite clearly I don't know when to shut up. So quite clearly people thought, let's just give Fabian it. That sounds like a good idea. So yeah, a lot of great experiences, but let's move on. So, yes. First job, exotics, new grad life, all of the above. So I graduated in 2018. So it's only just been over 2 years since I started working. I started work on September the 24th, 2018. And it's been a lot. It's been, you know, so much has happened in 2 years. And I think, just to share with the students that are, you know, coming out in their final years, or, you know, people who have probably experienced the same, is that different practices have different approaches to care and support. And I think I was very lucky in some senses with regards to the type of support I had, because I'm a type of person that enjoys or thrives in situations where I'm kind of, people come and I can seek them out for support. Some people prefer to have someone there, you know, saying, is this okay? And they go, yes or no, but that doesn't work for me. It's quite counterproductive for me. I find that type of presence is quite uncomfortable. And so I was blessed to go into an independent clinic, one of the very few that exist in the UK, and go straight into at the time it was 60% small animals or companion animals, and the rest was exotics. We're now at 60%, maybe even sometimes 70% exotic practice. And so here are some of the weird and wonderful things that I see. Bottom middle here, where I look very tired, was my very first day. I still had no grey hairs. No, I'm joking. But, you know, this is my very first day. And so this is just some of the type of things that I do. So I've got a video here. This is probably nothing surprising, but this is, I remember the reason why I put this video in is because when I realized I was probably going into exotics practice, I said I would feel like an exotics vet the first time I was able to successfully treat a chameleon. And so chameleons, I don't know where I got this particular goal from. There's no sense to it or logic, but that was it was a key moment that actually I can do this, because chameleons in captivity are like the worst lizards. And so to be able to actually do something right with the lizards that was 4 or 5 years old, which is pretty much the whole entirety of their whole lives in captivity, was quite a big moment for me. But I see everything. There's a meerkat that I saw maybe 3 or 4 months ago here. The reason why I have a smile on my face, but I also look like I'm in fear for my life, is because it did try to bite every single one of my fingers. So that grip is as light as it looks. It's it's stronger than steel at the moment. You know, I can really tell you that that meerkat wanted to kill me. So that's why I'm almost looking a bit fearful for my life, because I pretty much was. We've got some hawks here. This is a woodpecker that come in. This is my bearded dragon, Brutus. Here's Argentinian tegu. Here is a cute rottie. And here is me getting my certificate finally. And so a lot of my work now is built around exotics. So as soon as the first opportunity, once I pass my PDP, which for those who don't know is like the first, when you leave and go into the big vet world, the way that the Royal College, which is our governing board, tell you so that they can, you know, follow your progress to make sure you're not, you know, wasting your time, is making you do a bit of a diary. Now, I hope no one's from the Royal College in here. There probably will be, but I have some very interesting views on this particular obligation, and I'm happy to air them out in a forum, which is not here. Yes, but I basically took the first opportunity to start my certificate in exotics. And that was because it was quite clear in a very, very short period of time. You know, I had an interest at uni level. I did all, you know, the extras that I could with exotics. And that was why I got this opportunity to go straight into exotics practice, because they wanted an exotics vet or someone with some interest in it. But I really was invested, you know, 150% the moment that I stepped through the front door. And it was quite clear that I was invested. So I had all the books, I was buying all of them. I was, you know, constantly trying to find new ways to do all the weird and wonderful things in you know, exotics practice. And within the first 6 months of me starting, the main exotics vet ended up leaving. And the other main vet had a history mainly in emergency, had some exotics. And so effectively, I just felt it was a really good opportunity to really kind of ramp up my exotics practice. Excuse me. And so, yeah, it was a lot of work's gone into reptiles, birds, and small mammals and things of that nature. And so, with regards to my entrance to and being a new grad or recent grad, I'm still going through it now, most definitely. I feel like maybe in the last month I've kind of really transitioned away from that. And I can just say that for any new grads or recent grads or ones that are going into it, that the main thing that I will tell you, and I will tell you over and over and over and over again, is when you go into practice, be in a place where you can have, you know, support networks, be it friends, be it family, people that you love, people that you trust, and people that, you know, aren't going to necessarily agree with everything you do, but you know that they will say things that center your, you know, best interests. Because I can tell you now for free, in the first 6 months, you know, there was some pretty rough moments, and I feel like a lot of the temptation when you go into veterinary practice is to do so much. You know, I'm going to be an internship. I'm going to be next to Noel Fitzpatrick in 6 months, you know, and we're all going to be suited up like we're about to walk on Mars and do all these fancy surgeries. And I think, you know, the way that the world is with regards to how we look and how we present ourselves is very fast. It's very instant, it's very superficial. And I think in the first 6 months, I was just very, you know, there was definitely many periods where I thought to myself, you know, I'm just glad that today I can be relatively confident nothing's going to come back tomorrow and be like, right, you know, what's gone wrong here or why this hasn't worked. You know, so veterinary medicine is a lot about the stuff you learn at uni level, but it's also very much about your communication. It's about being part of a team. It's about not taking on the things that you don't get quite right so viscerally. You know, veterinary medicine, I like to tell people who don't know, is probably the biggest group of perfectionists on the planet. We always can't find it very hard to not compare ourselves to other people. And there's a whole, there's a long list about why we do that. But by all means, I can talk about that a bit more length another time. And so, yeah. Anyway. Oh, and then lastly, here is me next to my 3 Vivs. Just here in the bottom leftish. Here is a lizard. And quite often after this is sometimes the first thing I do when I get home. So I'm not sitting in a car skimming through Instagram relentlessly. Sometimes I will come in and just be quiet for 30 minutes and just stare at the tortoise eating pellets or some type of bit of veg that I found, and decided to give her. So I have 2 lizards and a red-footed tortoise, which all been rescued. So this is the type of thing I do after a 12-hour shift of pretending to, listen to my clients. So yeah, okay. So now, Dready Vet itself, where did it start? So top left, do you see here, it's July 23rd, 2013. Now let me tell you a little bit of a story about how Dready Vet actually started. So after my first year, I had basically killed myself to get great grades, do everything to a really high standard, and just worked incredibly hard. Like we all do, but it was almost not an obsession, but I was just so invested in doing well in the first year. And I remember I finished my histology exam, which was my last exam of first year, and I was so exhausted that I went to Subway and ordered 3 foot-long Subways. I went back to my apartment and ate 2 of them. I've known it since, but I ate 2 of them. And then for the next 3 days, I genuinely was probably sat in my boxes doing absolutely nothing. I don't remember it. It was just a blur. I was so exhausted by the first year that, I didn't really have a conception of time. People were messaging me. I wasn't really there. And after I'd come out of that daze, and, I started to see colour again, probably, I realised that I didn't really feel fulfilled. What did I do that for? Why did I nearly destroy myself to do all of that? And so for 7 days, I was thinking, I need to do something else next, because this is quite clearly not right. And so 7 days later, I was thinking about what I could do. I thought, well, maybe I can, do something different. Maybe I can, do a blog. That's when everyone was blogging and everyone was doing vlogs, and YouTube was really taking its kind of a whole world of its own. So I thought maybe I can do something like that. I don't need to be really over-invested in it. And so I went onto WordPress, the relic of the past, and it says here, hope for the start of something. And that was my first post. It was just literally a sentence. It's still there now. It was with my dog on my lap, bless her, R.I.P. And we basically, I took a selfie with this new lens I'd got that year, and that was it. I was going to do this, I was going to blog, I was going to write. And so that's where it started. And so every now and then I would just, I went to Ascot that year, and, I did a video. It was just really about finding meaning from something that was more than I need to get an A or I need to get this pass mark. And so I did that on and off for 2 years. And then on Twitter, London Vet Show were asking for blogs, bloggers, and they contacted someone else who was studying abroad, I believe, and they were having a conversation with him. And me being the nosy person I am, decided to insert myself into that conversation and say, hey, I can also write blogs if you want me to. I have done this. And they said, okay, absolutely fine. And so this is an example of the type of things I would write. So I can't remember what my first one was, actually, but very quickly I realised the type of things I was driven by. It might have even been halal slaughter, to be honest with you. So I was very interested in that as well. But it was about opening the doors to certain people and certain groups very, very quickly. So this one's called Women in Profession, Why Aren't We Doing More? Which is basically a appeal to men in the profession to get them to, or at least try and have a conversation about regards to feminism. And then I wrote for their first publication on the Vet Show, so educating the public, not future friend but current foe. It's because I was doing a lot of work with PDSA, and so they had their pet animal wellbeing report, and that was coming out every year. But I wrote about a lot of different things, so business, and then missing a true ethnic diversity, which was kind of the epicenter of a lot of great conversations with, which kind of morphed into, BVEDS and what it is now. It was kind of one of the, I think it's something that kind of put me as an individual on the radar for people like Marissa, and we'll come on to that in feed, to say, actually, here's something that, you've done beforehand, quite clearly on the same page. But now I also continue to write. Here in the bottom right is the Young Vet Network. For those who don't know, I am your UVA recent grad rep. So technically, even though I could say that I don't care what you think, I obviously do, but just because I say I couldn't, I definitely have to now. So if you have any thoughts or questions about what that entails, then by all means, just give me a message. But here's a message about new vets saying no and not feeling obligated. And so quite clearly, the complexion of everything was opening the playing field for all of us, because there is space for all of us. And also, in my meantime, the top right, I also occasionally write things with regards to, reptiles and chickens and whatever, I have all of them in a Dropbox. I will send you a shorter link than that, because that looks ridiculous, but I will send you another one. So if you ask for it, I'll pop it up for you, okay? And this is, yes. So I'm going to kind of jump over this. Most of you probably know me through, well, maybe not this, but a lot of you will know me through my work with people like BVEDS and things of that nature. So what we're doing today, for example, is a perfect example. That's why I put it in, right there in the center. Here is an article I wrote a couple of months ago with regards to Black Lives Matter, and trying to break down as many different concepts and as many different angles on the Black Lives Matter issue and how it related to veterinary medicine, and opening that playing field so people understand it better with regards to the type of things that we need to see. We've got the National Diversity Awards coming up for BVEDS, because they have been selected quite rightly as a finalist for one of the, I think it's, can't remember, it's for a particular category, but they've been, or they say we have been nominated, so we'll be there next year. And so I've written a lot of different things, but a lot of them are about opening up accessibility to people from ethnic backgrounds, but also the intersections with chronic illness, women in the profession, identity, LGBT, all of it is important, because as far as I'm concerned, there shouldn't be a dialogue in any field that, that does not allow us to all have an opportunity to become a vet, or anything, to be honest with you. So yeah, there's a lot of work that we've done here. We'll skip on very quickly, so we're over time. So it's coming. Definitely, if you don't know me from my work with BVEDS, it will probably be from the Pets Factor. I will tell you now for free that people ask me, how did you get on there? How did that happen? And to be brutally honest with you, it happened very quick. I have to be honest with you as well that a lot of it started from the very small group that we have in this kind of social media vet world. I believe because I was active very early, Kat and James in particular had plugged me, and thank you very much to those guys. If they are here, if they're not here, I will tell them after that I've given them their props. And we'd all kind of talked over social network or had conversations and met at congresses, BSAVA and things of that nature. And so, but the Pets Factor was just a really fantastic opportunity to increase my own visibility with the idea of making that as a platform for opening that world to as many people as possible. Now, I genuinely felt that, or feel even, that a lot of these opportunities are not necessary for me as an individual to have, as long as someone's doing it, I feel that way very, very passionately. But in absence of someone else doing it, then I can do it. And so the Pets Factor was very much, just a way for me to try and increase my own visibility and try and at least make as many different opportunities to kind of push that debate. Especially for children, because I think back to the type of role models, which is something I'm talking about a lot of now, that I had growing up in regards to veterinary medicine. And I had to do a lot of extrapolation, to be honest with you. So it was like, Steve Irwin and your David Attenboroughs and things of that nature, but not because they were the image of me or something that they understood, but I had to really focus on the fact that they were connected to animals, because that was it, one of the first times I saw a black person in relation to veterinary medicine, it was a TV show where they followed undergrad vet students. May have been for one episode. There was one girl that had gone to a university, again I won't name any names, and she'd done a farm trip, and she had complained to the cameramen that they were treating her different, and that she'd come across what she felt was racism. And the whole of that premise of racism was completely just, swept into the surface on TV. And I remember watching it because every time, a vet program would come on, Mum was like, you've got to watch it. And I remember, again, even at a very, very young age, just thinking of that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to encounter these type of people, and something else I have to do quite clearly. And it was just, it's odd that all those years later, and then doing my own process to veterinary medicine, what had happened when I'd seen that program when I was maybe 11 or 12 was still happening when I was doing work experience, when I was going to uni. So, 10, 12 years time had lapsed from when I saw that, and yet this, the exact same experiences, and they're still happening now. People come out and talk to me about them. So last thing, this picture here, this top right one, I hadn't seen this until yesterday. So one thing people ask me, how is it being, oh my God, you're such a celeb now, like, do you drive a Rolls Royce? No, all that happens is that when people say, can you do this for me? Or have you seen this picture? Or why are you in the Radio Times? I go, huh? What? And then I find these pictures. So, yeah, I had not seen this picture until yesterday. But I almost I'm not sure what color tone they tried to choose here, but I am. I mean, this is the picture I took. I like this picture, but this one I found in the Radio Times. So this is what it's like, guys. It's not all, Rolls Royce and fancy cars. It is holding cats and ending up in the Radio Times. But this is cool. Like, this was a highlight for me. Actually, it's probably the most exciting part of being on the Pets Factor, is having someone draw a picture of you holding what can only be described as a very fat bearded dragon thing. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things with regards to Pets Factor. Right, how are we doing for time? Right, I better hurry up. So that is it. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I hope I didn't go on too long. I think I'm a little bit over time, but by all means, I am here, and I want you guys, whether you're a vet student, whether you're a prospective vet, whether you're a recent grad, whether you just want some, brevity on certain issues, regards to anything, honestly, whether it's exotics or whatever, and by all means, please contact me, and I'll endeavour to get back to you. Please don't email me so much that you're telling me should you brush your teeth after going out to the club at 3 a.m. I don't care. But by all means, I'm very keen on pushing things like this, and thank you to Sutton Bonington Guild, Neve, everyone who's been involved for doing all of this great work and actually opening it up to so many people. It's really a pleasure. This is how I like to do things. I like things to be an open conversation, an open forum, and that's how we disseminate the right things to quite a wide variety of people and backgrounds, and give people access to a world they may not have considered. There will be people in here who have no interest in being vets, but it's still a worthwhile insight to the type of things that we all can share with. So thank you very much, and please feel free to ask me any questions. Okay, so how are we doing this? Neve, I'm taking your lead.
Someone said they've got to leave early, but they said thank you so much to hear your story and that you're an inspiration.
Oh, bless. Thank you very much. I mean, I don't mind if people write questions down and maybe Neve, you say them, or if people want to unmute, or I'm not sure what works.
If people any questions at all, anyone, if you want to put them in the comments, I can read them out, or if you want to unmute yourself, please feel free.
Anything goes.
You can literally ask anything you want.
I have a question.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, my name's Gabby. So I have one question. So because it seems like your course, it seems like you've really sort of gone through a lot on your course. It seems like, first of all, actually, I want to say thank you for sharing experiences and stuff. I've learned quite a lot. Even just being a long-time friend of yours, I'm just wow, you've really done a lot. What would you say to aspiring students who want to be a vet, who are working towards that? How did you sort of motivate yourself to sort of keep going? This is when you were abroad and you were sort of feeling alien in a different country. How did you still sort of tell yourself, how did you sort of prepare yourself to sort of keep going, because it must have been quite intense at times.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Gabby. For everyone who don't know, Gabby's one of my long-term friends, so thank you very much. I bore her all the time, but anyway, I think it's a how did I motivate myself and how did I overcome that? Yeah. I think the drive really comes from a sense of knowing that it's only me that lives my direction, my life, to be honest with you. And I think one thing that society and people and ourselves are very good at doing is putting our own priorities on the back burner, because we all these things can tell us that we're not designed for this. No one is born a vet. We don't come out with a stethoscope around our neck, or really good at orthopedic surgery, and yet we still build these passions from such a young age. And so for me, I had so many knocks and still managed to look back and say I overcame them to get to this particular point. And I also had the support of some amazing people around me at different points. It was a sense of understanding that I didn't want to do all of this and live with the regret or the belief that I didn't give it my best go. You can always be aware that things may not happen. It's not whether you do it or not. It's the fact if you gave it the best possible opportunity and the best possible chance to get to that particular point. And so things may change. I could have so many things could have happened between wanting to be a vet and actually getting there. But it was the belief that if I really wanted something, I would have to really try my absolute best to get there. Not even my best, just do what I could to get there. And that way, whether I got there or not, I would be at least at peace with it. So I think my main bit of advice for anyone who's struggling, whether on the course, before the course, or starting as a recent grad and working in the field, is really look back. And I've been saying this a lot recently as well. Celebrate your wins. Look back on what you've managed to achieve to get to this particular point. There's no one here. There's absolutely no one who's not done amazing things to get to the point where they are now. And so we always have this, obsession with, well, what if I don't? And what if? And, I've got this coming up and this is really hard and this person failed and this person don't place yourself next to anyone else. Look back at what you've managed to achieve and give it a good go. That's all that you can ask for, and try not to invest in the possibilities that may not go wrong. Look back at what you've managed to achieve and use that as energy going forward. And if it doesn't happen, you only have two options. You either continue to have a go, or you continue to have a go at something else. And that way you're not ever feeling like you're failing. That actually it's always an opportunity to move forward, and that's what got me through the degree in particular. It was just this belief that I came here for a piece of paper and I was going to do my absolute best to get there. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. So there's a question from Cassandra.
Yes.
They say, when Fabian finds himself in situations where he's being treated very differently due to his skin colour whilst being a student or a fresh grad in practice, how did he approach such situations, and where did you find support in those situations?
Very good question. I will have to be really honest with you. Thank you for the question. I have to be really honest with you that it is difficult. And I think at a point, especially at uni, I felt almost initially obligated to justify why it was a problem. And I think there's an element of some people find it so emotionally, and quite rightly, emotionally quite hard to deal with. They do two things. They completely withdraw from it, and they completely react and respond to it in such a strong response that it really grabs them emotionally, and both have value. And I think at first I was very keen to go, well, no, actually, and I realized very quickly that the amount of, and a lot of people will know about this, the amount of labor that I was doing to try and convince people for so many different things is that actually I picked up the characteristic of being awkward. And so when we're talking about issues around race, or how we see people from different backgrounds, whether it's culture, whether it's creed, whether it's religion, whether it's their gender or sexuality, whatever, I felt obligated to kind of tell people, actually, it's not acceptable. But very quickly, I also realised that these people were saying these things without any desire to actually change, and so you find yourself in over investing. So what I had to do was, how do I make a good representation of myself, not feeling guilty that if I do say something, but not feeling guilty if I don't say something. How do I make a good representation of myself and connect with the people that will support me, but also understand the type of things that I'm going through? And so in entering Dready Vet, it was a really great platform for me to show people that if they wanted to invest and wanted to grow, the information there was there. I had created a veterinary version of it, but there were also loads of articles. There was loads of other people that were having these conversations, and I'd done one step for them to understanding that. And if they didn't want to take that, then they were never going to accept the type of conversations that I was going to give them, because it was there. Google is free is the sentence, but Google is free-ish. Not, but we can talk about another day. But effectively, I put my investment into creating things, and that was a really good platform for me networking and meeting a bunch of great people who shared very similar beliefs to me, and were able to understand the frustrations. But it also was sometimes a really good gateway for people to go, oh, I didn't consider that actually. And that could just be there. And that's one of the beautiful things about the internet. You know, when you have a footprint on the internet, it's just there. So my articles are there still. And, you know, all the postulations and clarifications and things I did have past, most of them I assume would still be relatively relevant to now. And so that's the way I managed it. But with regards to where I am within, you know, clients in particular, it is a hard one, because if you're not in a practice that has taken the relevant, and this is a big conversation about now, is diversity and inclusion, and all of these topics are only being really discussed with a particular percent of investment now, to be honest with you. And so we have this massive lag in veterinary medicine with regards to the type of things you can and can't say. And so for me, I don't tend to be the person that highlights these things in practice, especially from, you know, clients when they say things, or, you know, something gets said, because often, you know, if I say something, I don't have belief in many of the wider structures to support me, to be brutally honest, because we're not there yet. You know, I think, even though it is the best, and I mean this, the best time to be able to raise these things, because you know who to go to. If it's issues around LGBTQ, you know, there is a society for that. If it is around ethnicity, diversity, or intersectional, or whatever, there is a society for that. If it's chronic illness, there's a society for that. And all the universities are being pressured, quite rightly, into having these conversations, but we're nowhere near where it needs to be. And so I would, unfortunately, you follow the line that makes you feel most comfortable. But the way I was able to circumnavigate it was by saying, you know, if they know me and they know the type of things I'm writing, and they know the type of conversations I'm willing to discuss, and they still go back to those particular ways of thinking, whether it's on the clinic page or Facebook page or whatever, and they still go back to those things, they're not the people that I'm going to put my effort into, you know, educating, you know, and sometimes closure, and this goes for a lot of different things, closure doesn't come from another person going, I understand it now, or I hate you. It comes from an understanding that it may or may not go the way you expect it to, and that's okay. You know, as long as you did what you feel you could do in that situation to make, you know, give them an opportunity to learn. That's how I, you know, logically rationalize how I manage those situations. But I can't lie. You're very likely to encounter a client or a colleague who's going to say things and double down on things which you can't comprehend for a lot of you. And that's a feature of society. And I would say that veterinary medicine is no different in that sense. I just want to say for everyone else is that you shouldn't shrink yourself to an extent where you feel uncomfortable all the time. And you also shouldn't feel like they highlight you to educate them either. You know, it's not your job as a victim of these types of nonsense interactions to educate them or be crushed into not saying anything. You know, seek the people around you, create things, whatever suits you, but just don't lose a sense of yourself for those type of depictions of reality, because they you know, they're wrong. Okay, that's it.
Cool. Very, very apt. We've got a question from Jade that says, thank you so much for the talk. I just wanted to ask, what is it you want to do next? Will you stay in exotics, and where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Good question. I think exotics is something that is kind of stuck with me. I can't see that changing. In the next 5 years, who knows? I think if I'd said to myself when I started veterinary medicine, I'd be doing this 2 years in and doing all these different things, I would have laughed in your face, to be honest with you. I am one of these people and people that know me know that I don't like to set objectives too hard, because again, expectation of the reality is something that I'm very, very, let's see what happens. I'll do what I can. But I think it would be, the main thing would be to open my own platform to be as proportionately visible as possible, to give as many people an opportunity to see some type of diversity, basically, in veterinary medicine. With regards to exotics and staying, and who really knows? I'd like to. I need to finish my certificate and do all that nonsense. And who knows? Maybe if the complexion of things changes in 5 years, and some of the people here are really taking a lead when it comes to diversity, maybe I'll do a specialism, or just because I want to be underpaid in the university for 5 years or whatever. No, I'm joking. Or am I? No. I who knows? I just would like that there is a space, and we continue to capitalise on the work that we have done in opening the kind of the platform for everyone here. So that's it, really.
Cool. So we've got a question from Laura. She says, coming from Birmingham, do you have any tips on coming from a city or town into vet med? I feel a bit intimidated with my lack of experience around farm and equine.
Okay, so ultimately, there's always this time. There is time. It's the best way to put it. There is time to learn everything in veterinary medicine. And so what I've been saying to the guys who have said, oh God, everything's on Zoom now, everything's on Microsoft Teams or whatever, is saying that you will have time. And two sides of that story is the practical side, the theoretical side. The theoretical side, it's studying, obviously. The practical side is that something you really want to do, then continue to just do it. Don't try not to say I haven't done this, or I haven't been brought up with horses. Just continue to do. And if your process and your journey is individual to the person you are, and the things you've had access to, and that goes for everyone. And that doesn't make you any less or any more capable of being able to do your job. It's just that your process may not be as straight as others. So that is that side. If we're talking in regards to experiences with, people, then it depends on a lot of different things. And I think it kind of ties into the last question as well, is you ultimately should have courage and confidence in your own process, because you've got to this particular point where we are now. This conversation is a signpost, as it were, to say that you have achieved amazing things to get to this very point, and that no one should be allowed to rob you of that self-belief that you can do amazing things in your lifetime, really. And so if you find yourself coming into a process where someone says, you just don't have it, or farming is for men over 6 foot, or equine is for people that have come solely from certain parts of southwest England, whatever. Ultimately, you will be able to, or should be able to, and should have belief that you'll be able to, with commitment and resilience and all those things, build your own path to that particular endpoint. And the only thing that I feel is important is that you should be invested in having a go, and not what the result is. And that's really, really important. So for me, it was very clear at a very early age that I didn't feel an affinity to horses, mainly because they were scared of my hair, I think. I've, so many horses have tried to kick me. Me and horses just don't get along. But if horses were my thing, and I had opportunities to work with horses because people thought I was good with horses, then that would have been something I would have never closed. the kind of door opportunity on. It's just, you're going to have to shed a lot of people's societal level expectations of who you can and can't be, unfortunately. And understand that that has value, but only you live your life. And so you just have to have a go and do your absolute best and continue to try and reach out to people that may have walked that journey before you. And if you haven't, then it is a golden opportunity to go and do that journey and make that journey. And when you get there, because if you believe it, it's definitely possible, make sure there is a ladder behind you to bring up everyone else, you know. And that kind of ties into what this is about here. It's about making sure there are ladders behind me in the way that, you know, I was able to climb up some ladders because of other people, and also make my own, you know, I want to make it easier for everyone else. So yeah, I hope that kind of makes sense.
Thank you. I like that. I like the ladder mentality. So we've got a question from Hugo. Hugo says, thanks for sharing your story, Fabian. Great initiative. What are your plans going forward? Do you think there will be any struggles coming your way for speaking up?
Yes, there always will be, because if there weren't, then these conversations wouldn't have been so hard to start in the first place. I think one thing I'm very aware of is, maybe to steal your question and turn it into something else, is one thing I'm very aware of is that people who position themselves as wanting to have the conversation and then use it as a way of saying, well, we've had the conversation, and then there not being any action behind it. And so I have a long connection and history with, you know, let's do this, this sounds great. And it never coming to fruition, any of the plans. And so I guess the struggles ahead won't be from, as far as I'm aware, in a very British sense, of course, which is, let's have a conversation, let's have grapes and, you know, biscuits and discuss it over, a 5-hour meal. It will be that actually something has to come from that. And so, you know, this is something that we have to be very aware of, is that we don't just sit down and have meetings. We don't just sit down and go, right, what can we do? Let's get Fabian in, let's get this person in, let's get Neve in, let's get and, you know, and collate all these ideas, and then that be it. That's going to be the hardest thing, because it's always the easiest way to get around doing it. Well, we had a conversation, nothing came as a result of it, let's have another one. There action has to follow ideas, otherwise it was a bit of a futile process. So, but for me personally, you know, I have to be really honest with you, everything's a bonus. You know, for me personally now, I was told from very early that you could be on TV, and I've managed to end up on TV somehow. And I am now having conversations about being a vet after spending my entire life wanting to be a vet. So where I go personally from here is everything's a bonus, and you know, as morbid as it sounds, if I wasn't going to be a vet tomorrow for whatever reason, I would be very proud and happy of the things I've managed to achieve in this very short span. So because I'm aware that, you know, at one point I didn't think it was possible, and that's just a huge achievement for me personally. So that's it.
So we've got a question from Lucy. Lucy says, thanks for such a great talk and sharing your experiences. Just wondering whether it was much of a culture change within the vet world when you began working in the UK after studying in the Czech Republic.
Yes, but I will tell you, the biggest culture change is living at home. Honestly, that culture change is very strange. Now, I think being a Brummie boy and knowing what to expect was kind of, you know, I think the bigger culture change was going from Birmingham to Czech Republic, actually. Let's take that back. Let's rewind that. Let's go all the way back. Being in a place where you don't have the access to your language, which is my ticket out of so many situations, and being looking like an absolute knob, for lack of better of words, trying to, you know, buy sweets from Lidl, you know, those type of things, is a huge culture change. In fact, Lidl was my favourite place in the Czech Republic because it's the one thing that actually reminded me of the UK. So, you know, that culture change was huge. I met, you know, a variety of different people. I have some great friends there. Ironically, a lot of them aren't in veterinary medicine. You know, people that were born, raised in Czech Republic. And so, you know, I had some really positive experiences from there. But that was a bigger culture change. But coming back, it felt like home. You know, so it wasn't a big shift for me because I did come back every now and then. I think the biggest culture change was realizing that being at home, initially at least, was a change because you start work. You're now, after spending 4, 5, 6 years at uni by yourself, having an element of freedom except the summertime. Now you're back, and then, you know, your priorities change completely when you start work. To be honest with you. I think the first 3 or 4 paychecks, everyone seems to want to spend every single pound. And, you know, and I think with my 3rd month, I realised actually I need to probably start saving. You know, the 20 pairs of shoes that I bought with my disposable this month probably didn't need to get bought. So, you know, the culture change was just a certain sense of responsibility, and also how crazy difficult it was to get up to speed with work, and those type of things. But with regards to Czech Republic, it was the opposite. Birmingham to Czech Republic was the biggest one for me.
Cool. There's a message from Heather that says, just wanted to say a huge thank you for everything you did for our orange bearded dragon Spiky last February to April. You really helped to put us both at ease, and we'll be forever grateful for your smile and support at that difficult time. Thanks for a fascinating talk.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. That's huge. Thank you.
We've got a lot of thanks from people. We've got another one from Jade that says that she's currently at vet school, and what would be your advice for getting into small exotics?
Don't feel like you have to be in an exotics practice to do exotics. If you want to get into it, you can be an exotics vet pretty much at any vet practice, but I mean this in particularly for companion animals, obviously. But you can be the exotics person at any practice. And so if you are willing to put yourself out there, a lot of practices will go, you know, I get referred so many different cases which don't need to technically be seen by me. And there are skills that really, you know, all of us as vets will have. And so I feel like I was fortunate in the sense that I started where I thought I possibly couldn't get. You know, who starts an exotic practice is very rare. But what I've understood is that I could be at any practice and still be doing a lot of the things that I'm doing now. And people build confidence with you. And so some of my friends who, you know, are interested in chickens and birds particularly, even though they're not doing a certificate or they're not an exotics vet as such, they see a lot of birds and you know, do that type of practice. So really it is putting yourself out there and saying, look, I have an interest in this. Here are the books that I've bought. I'm going to spend a lot of time reading them. And I'm also going to, reach out to people. And so don't make your title the reason why you're able to do things. Make your desire the reason why you can do things. And you know what, like I said many times before, and I will say again, is that this life is not a race. It's all about your journey, and only you're living it. And if it takes you 5 years to feel comfortable with just the bird size of exotics, then that's okay. If you want to do a certificate and develop that, then that's absolutely okay. So if you want to go into exotics, take your time, do the research, do the work, and don't feel that you need to arrive at, you know, the finish line. And that's part of the fun of doing it.
Wonderful. Right, well, that is the end of the
Oh,
questions.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I have one question. Sorry. Hi, Fabian. It's Kira.
Hi, Kira.
I just had a question. Was there any particular animal or procedure that you were really stressed out or freaked out that you would have to perform on or do? And how did you prepare or calm yourself in order to do it or perform on that animal? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. I did one recently, which I'll probably share soon on the gram, and I've already shared some other places as well. But effectively, I had a bearded dragon recently that had prolapsed its colon, and which is, you know, obviously a very fun thing to do, which is quite common. And the owner, by knowledge or not, had left it for 4 days, I believe, and so it completely, you know, gone manky, for lack of better words. And so I had to basically fuse 2 very random procedures because it was on the cheap as well to try and make it work. I think one thing that happens in surgery when you realise you go from being not a vet student, but being aware of what's happening as opposed to just being very focused on the task. There's a point where after the first 4 or 5 surgeries or whatever it is, you stop almost being aware of other things. So you focus because you know that you need to focus, and you just kind of go into the zone. A bit like if you were really invested in a project and then you're doing it for 3 hours and you go, oh God, I haven't used the toilet, I haven't eaten anything, you know, that type of sense of focus. It just happens one day, it happens at different times, different people. And so I would say on average, that happens. But anyway, with regards to staying relaxed in the situation, it's when something isn't going right your way in a surgery or even a consult, is to have the circuit breaker, which is the term we're using a lot in the UK at the moment, is you use a circuit breaker to take a deep breath and try and create a little bit of distance between you and what's going on emotionally. And so I am a big advocate for things like meditation and breathing exercises and creating distance between what's going on. So, you know, the first time you have a spay not happen the way you really want it to, you know, things tend to ramp up quite quickly. And so going, if you've got support there, defer to them for support, but trying not to just go, well, can you deal with it? Taking a deep breath and assessing what's actually happening. And so I had this bearded dragon, and I basically was cutting out about 5 centimeters of intestine, and then tying its intestine to its abdominal wall, or coelomic wall even. And there was one point where I wasn't so sure it's going to hold, and instead of panicking, is just assessing why I was upset, taking a deep breath, why was I a little bit frustrated, and saying, is this something that you can fix? Is there something you can practically do about it? And what things may you need to adjust? And when you think about like that, and maybe even say it out loud and verbalize it, what is actually happening loses some of its energy. Because, you know, if you say things like, have you ever said something out loud and go, well, why am I complaining about that? That's stupid. And so I create distance by breathing exercises and just kind of trying to appreciate that things are never going to be perfect, but what can I practically do to improve that situation? And is there something that I can do, or will I just have to hope for the best? And sometimes that's the best you're going to get. You know, there are no certainties in anything, but particularly veterinary medicine, you know. Thank you.
So we've had one last question, I think,
Yes,
because it is ticking on, and it just says, thank you, Fabian, for the talk and need for organising it. Is there a particular area of exotics that interests or excites you the most? Do you want to do any research in exotics to expand or develop the knowledge in this relatively new area?
My thing is reptiles, no surprise, but ironically, I probably am most adept at avian, to be honest with you, because, you know, birds are probably, out of all the exotics, I see more than anything else. And so with regards to research, everything, you know, as you may have picked up, everything with regards to research, I don't want to make research which is so far away from things that can be put into practice relatively early, you know, that it can't be used, you know, quite actively. And that's the beauty of exotics, you know. So I definitely won't rule it out. I mean, quick tangent story. One of the things I was supposed to do in my final year was a thesis, because in my university you can do a thesis on a variety of different things. And so I was going to do my thesis on trying to find practical ways, or quicker practical ways of assessing CCL in, you know, first line practice effectively. For whatever reason, some admin didn't happen from the university side, and so I didn't end up doing a thesis. But what I did in place of that was a module in my final year on clinical pathology. And as a result, it was probably actually, out of all the things, probably the most useful rotation that I ended up doing. I learnt more on that than I did any of the others, ironically. And so what I will say is, you know, with regards to my own process, is that things which are accessible, things which, you know, people are connected to, and, you know, if things don't happen in the way that you want them, they can often, you know, end up a lot better than you know, you originally envisaged them to. And so who really knows? But most definitely reptiles. I know a lot about birds. They're very close. I do like small mammals, but my energy is around those particular fields. And, you know, if I can do something or find something, you know, then brilliant. There are no doses for a meprazole in meerkats, and I used a meprazole in a meerkat and it worked very well, so maybe that's where I'll start, you know. So yeah, thank you guys, thank you very, very much, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you everyone. It is literally 8 o'clock, so
wow,
we're on time.
Awesome.
Right, thank you so much everyone for coming. Thank you so much, Fabian, for doing this. It really means a lot. Lots of thank yous in the comments. I'll just do a little shout out. If you're a Nottingham vet student, NUVS, our Zoological Veterinary Society, are doing a talk right now about EMS placements abroad on their Microsoft Teams account, so you can head over there if you want to. If not, that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys, have a lovely day. Remember, you can find me on everything, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you.